All right, chat, we're in the red. We're doing the red cards now. We did white, we did blue, we did black. Now we're on the red. Socials and everything are in the description below. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and all that YouTube stuff. And yeah, let's not waste any time. Bitter Reunion. One red, one colorless. Enchantment. Bitter Reunion enters the battlefield. You may discard a card. If you do, draw 2 cards. Pay 1, sacrifice Reunion. Creatures you control gain haste until end of turn. The bottom portion of sacrifice and give creatures haste is mostly flavor text. The only part I care about is that the fact that this is an enchantment and the tormenting voice thing. Normally I wouldn't put these cards in here, but the reason I put this in here is because there's one card I want to use this with, and well, actually 2 decks, but one of them is with braids, and the other one is basically some additional filtering with like Fable and Rafine's Informant with like Invoke, the white Invoke Justice, and playing some Reanimator strategies with this. But the fact that this is an enchantment allows me to filter, in addition with Fable, with Braids, and many others that give me some sacrifice fodder, is also relevant. Normally, like I said, I wouldn't put those type of tormenting voice stuff in here, but the fact of just being an enchantment is relevant. Only in standard and in limited. This should not see play anywhere else. There's also an enchantment deck that was playing Naya before. This might give a little bit of some card selection along with just being an enchantment in those types of decks. You'll notice that there's not going to be very many red cards because red got the short end of the stick, but their power level they make up for the fact of them not having as many cards that I think are constructed playable. Speaking of one that is, though, is Brotherhood's End. 2 red, 1 colorless sorcery. Choose 1. Brotherhood's End deals 3 damage to each creature in each planeswalker. Or destroy all artifacts with mana value 3 or less. Anger of the God effects, sweepers that also affect planeswalkers. We didn't have one that was a 3-drop. Now we do. And having a Shatterstorm effect for 3 mana or mana value 3 or less is also something we didn't have. It was either we had Shatterstorm or we had a spell that targeted. This one doesn't do any of that. And we get to choose one. So are we against a creature deck, or are we against a permanent style deck that doesn't play very many creatures but plays a lot of permanents like artifacts? Notably, this also can destroy artifacts of mana value 3 or less, even if they're bigger than 3 damage, which will be relevant in some of those artifacts that we'll talk about later. So this spell is very, very good. This also has applications in older formats too, just given the fact that it's an Anger of the Gods effect. And if you need a sweeper and Anger of the Gods or exiling doesn't matter to you, this is going to get the nod over Anger. Just because you have more modes and more utility than just Anger of the Gods does. So like, for example, you have Anger of the Gods in your sideboard in Explorer or Pioneer or Modern, and you like don't have that many cards against, say, Rakdos Sacrifice. Well, now you do, because this destroys all their food tokens, all their Witches' Ovens, and maybe some treasures, because they're playing with Fables and many other things. All right. Draconic Destiny, 2 red, 1 colorless enchantment aura. Enchant creature gets +1/+1 and has haste, flying, and +1. This creature gets +1/+0 until end of turn. It's a dragon in addition to its other types. When enchant creature dies, return Draconic Destiny to its owner's hand. So a different version of Demonic Embrace, which gives flying, but this gives haste. I think the other Demonic Embrace gave something else. I think it made it bigger. But this one gives +1/+0, or +1/+1. I don't know if this is better than than Angel Fire, but this seems... I don't know what to make of this card because it doesn't have the clause of if it goes to the graveyard, right? So like you can negate this effect, the bottom portion, by destroying the creature before it hits play, and the creature dying won't return, and then this gets put in the graveyard. You just get blown out basically. But if you're able to put this onto a creature, excuse me, and the creature is... The only thing I want to put this on is double strike creatures. Like, I want to put this on, what's that card? Illuminator or Virtuoso. I want to put this on, this seems like build your own Embercleave card, where you don't have Embercleave, but you have this. And if you put it on a double strike creature, or a prowess creature, it's 3 damage, and it's permanent. And if you untap with it, it also has colorless to activate, not red. So if you're playing with Power Stone, same thing. And yeah, and it gives it flying, so it gives it evasion and haste, and yeah, it doesn't look that impressive at first glance. But when you put it on something that wants to get bigger and wants to connect, this is how you want to do it. Much like how Demonic Embrace was used with Death Shadow and, you know, other creatures that wanted to get big and go over the top. Like Rotting Registrar and many others that were in that format that were with those big creatures. So only in Standard. I don't think this is good enough in any other format. Dwarven Forge Chanter. 1 red, 1 colorless, 1/3 dwarf wizard. Ward, pay 2 life, prowess. That's a cool Dobby picture.
Isn't it?
2 different ones.
Yep. I love Dobby. Let's go.
Bye, kitty. Meow. At first, I didn't see the prowess point, and then somebody pointed that out, and I was like, "This card is obnoxious." Is it better than the 1/1 or 1/2 that has trample that has virtual prowess? I like these cards that have ward. So you have this card and a bunch of other prowess creatures that is the ward alone is enough to have you play this over a bunch of other stuff. And it's not embarrassing. And it's a wizard. So like that wizard text matters. And prowess is any non-creature spell, not just instant or sorcery. So this is impressive. How impressive? It'll wait to be seen. But I foresee this seeing play in at least Standard, but this could venture into older formats too. Just, it was already good with prowess. Then you tack on ward, and this thing could really, really punish some people. So, for example, in Explorer or Standard or whatever, Boros already has a lot of 1 mana protection spells. So, like, you know, your opponent tries to kill this, they pay the 2 life, and then you give it protection. And then they have to pay, and then they have to target it again. So they're already taking 4 damage to kill this thing, right? Like that. In that exchange, I think you win. You traded 2 for 2, but that was 4 damage, right? This card is better than you think it is. Trust me. All right. Just in Standard and Explorer, maybe in Historic because of the Wizards prowess deck. That's just playing all 1 and 2 drop wizards, with virtual Wizards Lightning and virtual Lightning Bolt and many others with Wizards Lightning. And it could venture and explore with Wizards too, because it's a wizard and there's a bunch of them, right? So yeah, don't count this out. This seems like a very good aggro card. Feldon Ronom Excavator. Holding his cane, by the way. Very, very awesome art. To go back to the nostalgia of Feldon. 1 red, 1 colorless, legendary human artificer 2/2. Haste. Feldon can't block. Whenever Feldon is dealt damage, exile that many cards from the top of your library. Choose one of them. Until end of turn, or until the end of your next turn, you may play that card. This card basically says attack with me every turn and don't care about what happens to me. If there is a way to deal damage to this consistently, this card would be a lot better. I just don't know how to do that. And this, I'm not saying this, I did say it, but I may have misspoke or, went a little bit overboard. I said this was probably better or slightly better than Robber of the Rich. But like red already has one of the best 1-drops already in Kumano. And any 2/2 that you get off of the top to play a 2-drop with Kumano, you're already winning. Making this into a 3/3 is scary. Because if they spend any damage spell, like a Braid or Strangle or whatever, you get to look at the top 3 cards of your library and essentially draw a card for them killing this if they did any damage to you, right? And if you're able to get this bigger, like, protected, and they dealt damage to it, like, it doesn't read that bad. And it reads like one of those, well, it's just a 2/2, nobody cares, and it can't block, it's just attack. It basically says you don't stop attacking with this card, much like Brazen Borrower, essentially. So yeah, red getting a lot of help here, a lot of aggro cards. Yeah, and it's till the end of your next turn, so it's not until your next end step, it's your next turn. So if you can't play it this turn, like you played a land, then you attacked with it, and you get a land again, you still get your land drop for the next turn. Yeah, you don't care about that. I think this card's actually good. Giant Cindermaw. 1 red, 2 colorless, Dinosaur Beast. 4/3 trample, players can't gain life. I put this on here because of it's basically the return of Rampaging Ferocodon. The only difference is that it's not it doesn't have menace, and it doesn't have the punishing effect of the each creature that enters play that controller loses or gets dealt 1 damage. The players can't gain life clause is already relevant. And now you have a trampling 4/3, and it's already good on rate. And yeah, Rampaging Ferocodon is the better card in older formats, but we don't have that in this format, and there's a lot of incidental gain life cards. And while it is a 4/3 for 3, there are a lot of 4/3 for 3s. And those are already good on their own. And it has trample. So if you're able to make this bigger, like giving it a +1/+1 counter, or, you are playing red, so you got, Kumano, or you got Angel Fire Ignition, or whatever, right? Albeit that it gives it lifelink and you can't gain life. But again, you don't care about that because you're just trying to kill people, and that's essentially what this does. In a, wannabe Bone Crusher Giant body. Mechanized Warfare. 2 red, 1 colorless enchantment. If a red or artifact source you control would deal damage to an opponent or a permanent an opponent controls, it deals that much damage +1 instead. So how many red artifacts, permanents do you have to where this makes this good? Like, your 1s now become 2s. Your 2s now become 3s. Your 3s now become 4s. This is like a smaller version of Torbrand. And Torbrand was a very playable Magic card. I don't know if this is, but it says red or artifact. So, it doesn't have to be red. It can be black. It can be blue. As long as it's an artifact, right? And red doesn't mean just straight red. You have blue-red cards. You have Blood Tithe Harvester. That's black-red. So, and then, I don't know if there's any artifacts that, that like ping or do any of that stuff, but there are a lot of 1/1 incidental 1/1 artifact creature tokens. And this is basically a pseudo +1/+1 for them, except +1/+0. So instead of them being 1/1s, they're 2/1s. And at first I thought this card seemed bad. And then the more I read it, I was like, this card seems better than it looks. And this is a build. As I said earlier, a lot of the cards that you see are build around me, synergistic, and just all around, please play with me and build around me and solve the puzzle. And there are so many red cards that do this, many black cards, green, all of them do this. And it's just so awesome to see. Because a lot of older sets that we've had in the last couple of years have been just like, yeah, this is good, but if we had this 5 years ago, it would have been playable, and now it's not. Scaling back the power in a way that gives modality is, and metagame shifts on choosing which cards to play in your deck is better than always having the best card. The fire design was doomed to failure, was doomed to fail, even though it was one of those, it sounded great, but it was bad in practice. You want to have choices, and you don't want to always have the same choice. That's what makes Magic better than what it was in the last 5 years or so. And this is one of them. I don't know if this sees play in any other format, but oh boy, does this read better than I think than it looks. Well, hi, fat guy. That's the handsome fat man.
No, it's Sturdy Muffin.
It's the sturdy guy. He had no neck.
Look, he got his collar today. It's a stud muffin.
Stud muffin?
Yeah. Say hi to everybody.
You 16-pound, 15-pound kitty with no neck.
No. Here you go. Nice thing. Go ahead and sit him down.
All right.
Unless you want to show Joe.
Mishra's Command. Oh, man. I love talking about Magic. I'm sorry. This is like my favorite thing to do. I love talking about it more than playing about it. All right. Mishra's Command. 1 red X sorcery. Choose 2. Choose target player. They may discard up to X cards. Then they draw a card for each card discarded this way. This spell deals X damage to target creature. This spell deals X damage to target planeswalker. Target creature gets +X and 0, +X +0, and gains haste until end of turn. Excuse me. So, I think this is the second best command. And it's only because it's a 2-for-1. If the first clause said, choose target player, they discard, as in they don't get to choose, I might have put this card better than the Urza's Command. But because it says they may, which means you can't use this with Narset, how disappointing. All right. Now, there are a lot of Planeswalkers in this format. There are very many Planeswalkers. There are more Planeswalkers than Explorer, Pioneer. Not so much Modern, but in Standard and Explorer and Pioneer, albeit a sorcery, this is almost a 2-for-1, and you don't have to spend that much mana to do it. Like, yeah, it's a little bit overcosted by the fact that 1X is just 1 damage, but it scales. And I'm not saying that it's going to see play by a lot, but it's got modality. As in, you have too many lands in your hand, you kill a creature, discard some lands, draw some cards, some filtering. And you sort of like break even in that sense. So most people looked at this and go, oh, it doesn't deal enough damage. And it's like, you got to give it a chance, right? So the fact that it hits both a creature and a planeswalker, you gotta work your way to it. Or you could filter some of your cards. It's better than it looks. It'll probably see play. Second best command, or Urza's command. And yeah. All right. Chat, you want to know why a certain card wasn't in Explorer Anthologies 1? Because it's getting reprinted in this set. Monastery Swiftspear. I've been clamoring for this card for ages. All right. We finally get it. 1 red, 1/2 human monk, haste, prowess. Chat, this is one of the best red 1 drops ever. Ever. All right. In Explorer, it finishes or virtually finishes the aggro decks in Pioneer. It gives you another 1 drop in Historic, and Standard gives you a red 1 drop you've been bitching about the entire time. This card makes aggro much better, and it is one of the best 1 drops. It sees play in every format it has been in Standard. It has seen play in Pioneer. It sees play in Modern. It's everywhere. All right. For those who don't play those formats and only play Standard, if you're an aggro player, you're playing 4 of these. And it's not just in Mono Red, although this makes Mono Red have 12 good 1 drops, maybe 16. It also means that you could play a blue-red based prowess spell-based deck. We have all the cards for that too. Or Jeskai, or red-white. So this card's insane. All right. And it will see play in every format when it finally gets here, and I can't wait to build all those spell-based decks in Standard and Explorer and in Historic, and just, oh boy, can't wait. Awesome reprint, awesome card to have in the format. And just to follow that up with Obliterating Bolt, Rip Lava Coil, 1 red, 1 colorless sorcery. Obliterating Bolt deals 4 damage to target creature or planeswalker. If that creature or planeswalker would die this turn, exile it instead. Lava Coil and many other 2-drop 4 damage spells only did it to creatures. Now we get to do it to creatures and planeswalkers. It is about friggin' time that we got something like this, and I am all here for it, especially for damage spells for red. Red needed this, and we get to have them, and it's awesome. And yes, please, in all formats, Explorer, Standard, maybe not in Historic, but this might actually in Historic. This might actually see play over not all of them, but some of them. Molten Impact, which is a busted magic card in its own right against creatures specifically, but this also hits planeswalkers. So over the top, 2 red, 5 colorless sorcery. Each player reveals a number of cards from the top of their library equal to the number of non-land permanents they control. Put all permanents they reveal this way onto the battlefield and put the rest into their graveyard. So non-land permanents you control. This is screaming to have mana rocks and mana dorks and all a bunch of stuff to put a bunch of stuff into play. This is like the red version of Storm the Festival. It costs 1 more, but it incentivizes you to play a bunch of permanents, right? And there are some ways to go from 3 to 7 or 3 to 6 to 7 or 2 to 5 to 6 to 7, like to accelerate you into this, and you're playing a bunch of permanents to do so. So, and it's any permanent, right? So if you have, for example, 4 non-land permanents in play, well, you're revealing the top of your library until you... Oh, only the... Okay, I'm sorry. I misread. It's... So if you have 4 permanents in play, you only reveal the top 4, but if they're all permanents, they all come into play. All right?
Fought Foos in World War II, WW2. Alright. Appreciate it for hanging out. First time chatter. Hype in the chat. Let's everyone say what's going on to Fought Foos in World War II.
All right. Awesome. Thanks for hanging out with us as the set review. Yeah. It's a little bit awkward, yeah, that Power Stones count, but they don't count to cast. It is kind of obnoxious, but there are ways to get this. I think I put this in here more for not for standard, but for older formats that have like a lot of mana dorks and a lot of mana rocks and stuff like that, where you can get up to like 6-7 non-land permanents in play to cast this. But in standard, you have a lot of treasure tokens too. So it's not to say that you can't use Power Stones. You can use treasures to do the same, and you're getting 2 permanents, 1 for the treasure and something that produces it. So we'll see. I'm not saying it's going to be worth anything. Just keep in mind that there are sets that have been produced in the last couple of sets that just incidentally put treasures into play or random tokens or whatever. Sardian Cliff Stomper, 1 red, 1 colorless, 0/4. As long as it is your turn and you control 4 or more mountains, Sardian Cliff Stomper gets +X+0, where X is the number of mountains you control. So I read this wrong just now. I thought this read different. In my head, I thought it just said as long as it is your turn, this gets +X+0 for the number of mountains you control. But that's not the case here. It is, you have to have 4 mountains in play. So effectively, this is a 4-drop that costs 2, because you're not getting anything until turn 4. Effectively, if you're only playing red cards. So this is a monocolor card, in my opinion, or a mostly red deck with some splashes that are not using that many non-basics that don't have basics attached to them. So like if you're playing, an Explorer and you're playing like Gruul, you're disincentivized to play Carplusian Forest and Rockville Vales and like that type of stuff, and you're just only supposed to be playing forests, mountains, and Stomping Grounds and many others. And you have to have 4 mountains. So to turn this on, it incentivizes you to be mono red. So it kind of sucks that you have to have 4 mountains as opposed to being a 0/4, and you really can't play this on 2. And even playing it off of Kumano is still, having a 1/5 is kind of like whatever, unless you have like something to make this bigger. Demonic or not, Draconic Destiny might, but limited All-Star though, if you're playing mono red or a lot of mountains. Tyrant of the Courageous. So instead of Rock of Courageous, now it's Tyrant of the Courageous. He grew up. 2 red, 4 colors, dragon, or they grew up. Flying. When Tyrant of Courageous enters the battlefield, it deals 4 damage to any target. 1 red. Why 1 red? Everything was 1 colorless. This one's 1 red. 1 red. Tyrant of the Courageous gets +1/+0 until end of turn. It's a 4/5. A little bit undercosted, or a little bit overcosted for the rates. 4/5 for 6 is a little bit has flying, but it's got Flame Tongue Kavu, 4 damage to any target. If you're able to, get multiple uses out of this, great. But 6 mana is an eternity, right? And yeah, this is a callback to an old Courageous. It was called Rock of Courageous way back when. I think it was in Legends, and it was a 3/3 for 4, and it just flew. That's all it did. And basically, this is a callback to it where it looks like Rock of Courageous grew up, and now it's a Tyrant. And this is the wannabe Shivan Dragon type deal, but it deals 4 damage. So it's got some play to it. I think this is more of a limited bomb than a constructed card. If it does see play in constructed, it's going to see play in standard only. unless you find a way to continuously return it back from your graveyard or blink it from back and forth, because you have so many different things that does this at a much cheaper rate in, say, Explorer or older formats. And last but not least, Visions of Phyrexia. 2 red, 2 colorless. I laughed at the flavor text. Yeah, I know, right? Oh, wait. Visions of Phyrexia. 2 colorless, 2 red. Enchantment. At the beginning of your upkeep, exile the top card of your library. You may play that card this turn. At the beginning of your end step, if you didn't play a card from exile this turn, create a tapped Power Stone token. So this is the basic red 4 drop that, nets you a card. And if you don't play the card, much like if Chandra, if you didn't play the card, you dealt 2 damage. This one, you create a Power Stone. And it's every turn. So if you don't play something, that counts lands too. So if you play a land, you're not getting a Power Stone token. I just don't know what deck wants this. It incentivizes you to play artifacts, like a lot of them, because your Power Stone tokens don't do anything but pump your stuff. And as you've seen, the majority of the red stuff that we looked at were pumping for red, not colorless. So I don't know what deck wants this. It seems like a sideboard card for the red decks that need an extra draw card, but there's so much good mana in this format that I wonder if you don't need something like this and you can play like blue or white that gives you card availability with, say, for the blue cards, you got a bunch of different ways to draw cards with Curate and some 4 stuff. And in white, you got Wedding Announcement and many other cards that do the same thing. So I think this is a little bit overcosted, more like a limited all-star, but it could see some sideboard play, or if you're building around it with the Power Stone mechanic. But again, why would you play this over, say, Karn that basically does the same thing? I don't know. It remains to be seen if this is good enough or not. All right, those are the red cards, the red colored cards. We're going to move on to green. For those, for the YouTubers, the socials in the description below, along with the Twitch stream and all that stuff, along with many other links. If you enjoy said content, as I said in the beginning, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe to the YouTube channel and all the other socials. I'm very active on Twitter and Discord, while also might have podcasts and other stuff coming as well. And for the Twitchers, we're going to move on to green. YouTubers, you might see this in the same day or a couple days after, but all these will be released before the set releases on the 15th. I think is when the whole set releases. I definitely am sure that it'll be out before the early access on 10 and 11th for Arena. So if there are any cards that I looked at for red that were not talked about, or you think there's something else that was not discussed that could be in any constructed deck or any constructed format, not just standard, let me know in the comments below. All right, see you in the next one.